Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here to address the topic of responsible investment. We are today almost all convinced that integrating environmental, social, and governance issues in investment strategies is not nice to have, it's a must to have. And that means that there has been a great evolution in the recent times. When we created Amundi 7 years ago, we defined 4 pillars of the DNA of Amundi. 3 were traditional: the performance of products, the quality of the relationship, the efficiency, and the last was to be a responsible investor. And progressively, responsible investment has evolved from a niche approach handled by SRI specialists to a mainstream integration of environmental, social, and governance criteria. At this time, let's say 7 years ago, very few investors were concerned for this. It was mainly large Nordic investors, and mainly through exclusion practices. Then it has become quickly a major theme as a consequence of a growing collective and political awareness about social and environmental issues, especially those linked to climate change. COP21 in Paris at the end of 2015 marked an important turning point in acknowledging the importance of the ESG risk, starting with climate-related ones. But we have also witnessed the development of awareness about social dissatisfaction, which led to the emergence of populism and the necessity to give answers in that field. ESG question thus became in France, in the whole Europe and around the globe, a major issue, as demonstrated, for example, by the success of the One Planet Summit in December 2017, hosted by President Macron. Public and finance players then reaffirmed their mobilization to accelerate the fight against climate change. The European Commission Action Plan on Financing Sustainable Growth, launched last March in Brussels, testifies to Europe's will to reorient financial markets towards a more responsible economies. Asset owners and asset managers are not the only one involved. For there to be a sustainable investment, there must obviously be responsible investors. There must be also issuers engaged in an approach of continuous improvement, aware of the value placed on environmental, social, and governance criteria and their importance in their business model. As shareholders, it is thus the responsibility of investors to ask companies to pursue objectives of general interest and not only linked to pure financial returns. And there are 2 reasons. Firstly, because we consider that the responsibility of economic and financial players is just the natural counterpart of their increased freedom. Corporates must, of course, create values for their shareholders, but they also need to take into account the interests of the society as a whole. The question of the ultimate purpose of cooperation lies at the heart of the so-called PACT law dedicated to the company goals that will soon be debated by the French Parliament. Secondly, we are convinced that for corporates there is no contradiction with a long-term view between financial performance and ESG performance. When the product differentiation is less and less decisive, the brand differentiation becomes the key element. In this respect, the perception by the consumers of the role of a company for the society is now a key parameter of the brand. Consequently, for investors, ESG analysis is not something nice to have, it's becoming as necessary as traditional financial analysis, and the two must be combined. So, as long-term investors, how do we concretely make companies change? The objective is to encourage, to incentivize companies to embark ESG in their global strategy. It must not be an ideological approach, pointing and shaming. It's an approach of responsibility and improvement. Is this approach in contradiction with companies' profitability? Certainly not. On the contrary, there is clearly favorable to create sustainable performance. Companies must manage their risks, financial, operational risk, regulatory risk, but also reputational risk. Sustainable strategies are key to manage this risk and, on the positive side, to identify opportunity of growth. For all these reasons, Amundi has chosen to implement the best-in-class approach. It relies mostly on overweighting or underweighting the stocks or bonds based on the ESG analysis of corporate practices and business models. Exclusion, in this view, is only applied in extreme cases or in controversial sectors. Of course, this analysis of companies has to be based on text with a universal scope and take into account the business sector, but also the regional or national and legislative context. It's not mainly about creating new norms. We don't want to be new prosecutors, but it's about, as I said before, it's to stimulate companies into action. In this respect, we have built our autonomous judgment on ESG, relying on recognized providers and universal reference frames, international convention, United Nations Global Compact, SDGs, but also with a very strong in-house expertise, acknowledging country and cultural specificities. Over and underweighting is a way to align the interests of company leaders and investors. It works like a kind of a bonus-malus system through the rating and therefore through the valorization of companies. There cannot be a sustainable development strategy for a company only if it's embedded in the long term. As a consequence, long-term investors, which represent the bulk, probably 90% of the global market cap in the world, must play their part and certainly not leaving to the short-term ones. Looking back over the evolution of the financial industry during the last 20 or 30 years, we have seen an increasing liberalization of the financial system, but with a growing power of short-term market players, such hedge funds, expressing high expectations as regards company business model. In the meantime, long-term shareholders remain rather passive. One of the big objectives now is to put again the church at the center of the village, with an increasing responsibility coming from long-term investors. Because for a corporate to implement a long-term strategy, you need to be backed by long-term investors. Implementing sustainable strategies in business model requires this long-term view. Tackling short-term is thus one of the points of the European Action Plan for Sustainable Growth. Being a committed player means engaging in a constructive shareholder dialogue and exercising voting rights at general meeting. This is true for active management, of course, but passive management can also be used to implement a personal vision through ESG filters, exclusion, and shareholder engagement. How does these practices and conviction translate in terms of investment policies? As I said, what will really get things moving is the generalization of ESG integration in the management of all funds, wherever it's technically possible. This is, in Amundi, our ambition. We consider that the quality of a fund must be, of course, be assessed by its performance or risk-return ratio, but also on the way it is managed to achieve this performance. To use an analogy with the car industry, I would say that today cars have to be fast, to be sure, not too expensive, but also non-polluting. On the top of the mainstream of the ESG factors, some funds can address specific thematics. Amundi has been very active lately in proposing innovative ESG initiatives, particularly on climate. I will mention three. Our partnership with the utility energy EDF, we create a specialized venture dedicated to the financing of energy infrastructure. Second, a partnership with IFC, the subsidiary of the World Bank, with whom we launch an emerging green bond fund, which already has 1.5 billion euros under management. And finally, low-carbon index funds now used around the world. We have, for example, the largest low-carbon ETF with 850 billion euros under management. In conclusion, I would emphasize on 3 points. Firstly, I consider that today no company, no investors can consider that it's not its responsibility to take into account the general interest. It must be in the DNA of this institution. Second, that the implementation of this responsible approach must be rigorous, honest, but also modest. We are in a new area, and we are learning every day, and the practice is as important as the principle. I think that we have not to stigmatize, but at the same time, not to overpromise. We must look at the dynamic side of the exercise, what the future holds in positive and negative. And finally, I would say that pragmatism is key. Of course, we have to use universal principles to defend some values in which reflect a good way of doing things. But at the same time, we have to respect, to take into account the specificities of each region or each country. We have to be open-minded enough to mix the two. Thank you for your attention.